It has been roughly 4 years since we were blessed with Halloween 2018, a movie that acted as a fresh reboot to the franchise while also being a true sequel to the original, dubbed the requel by the horror fandom. This movie got vastly favorable reviews and was seen as a return to form by most, and for good reason. When not one, but 2 sequels were announced in quick succession though, I got a little bit worried. Announcing a finale for a trilogy when the second installment isn't even out yet is either very brave or very foolish, depending on your perspective. When it comes to the Halloween franchise, I feel like it's always been hard to keep that lightning in a bottle going for extended periods of time. Halloween Kills wasn't nearly as good in comparison to the previous entry, which is only natural considering how difficult it is to really nail a sequel and keep the quality up. For the last year, I've been cautiously optimistic for this curtain call, as it's never easy to construct an ending, especially one for a property that has such an extensive history as this one. Now that Halloween Ends is in our laps, I figure it's time to look the boogeyman in his face and head to Haddonfield one last time. If you haven't seen this movie yet, I will be kinda spoilery throughout the review, so of course, tread carefully. Before we begin, please consider leaving a like and comment and maybe sub to the channel. I'm trying to hit 500 subs by the end of the year. With that out of the way, let's dive into the supposed final Halloween film and see if it goes out with a bang or if Michael's blade has dulled from too many sequels. As a franchise, I find Halloween fascinating. With as many timelines as the series has, I do admire how each new timeline is tonally different from the last. Be it cults, live streams, or hellbilly raunchiness, Michael Myers has been a staple in this genre for longer than most of us have been alive, and that continues to ring true even with this new trilogy. Focusing on the effect Michael has had on Laurie Strode and Haddonfield after that fateful night in 1978 was a great decision. Narratively speaking, it never reinvents the wheel, but it doesn't have to. Being more focused on character drama and the fallout of the events of the original film helps to make the plot feel compelling enough to be invested in, unlike certain installments. Throughout this new trilogy, Michael's evil has seeped into the very foundation of Haddonfield like a virus. From the opening of Halloween 2018, where the other psychiatric patients are all breaking down in the presence of him, to the town becoming rabid in an attempt to hunt Michael down, it's clear that his very existence and subsequent return has caused this town to rot away. This is also easily my favorite version of Michael, and without a doubt the scariest version as well. There's a constant foreboding feeling throughout these movies that he could be anywhere at any time, and thanks to the newfound brutality, it really helps sell why we should fear the shape. The kills and ends certainly do not disappoint when they finally start to occur, especially for a certain group of bullies. Talk about karma. A new character is introduced by the name of Corey, and I know this character is extremely divisive, and rightfully so, but admittedly, I think there was a lot of potential that was just kind of squandered. I'll talk about him a little bit more when I begin to discuss the things I didn't like, but ultimately, I just didn't enjoy his presence outside of the kills he gave us. Jamie Lee Curtis of course goes out with a stellar performance as Laurie as per usual, nobody had any doubts about that, and I'm glad her character got to have some resolution after all this time. She seems so much happier and actually trying to legitimately move on with her life and overcome her trauma, and it warmed my heart to see. Her final bout with Michael is tense and thematically appropriate thanks to callbacks to the original, although admittedly, I wish the build-up throughout this movie in particular would have been better, given how we were cock-blocked from it in the previous movie. I also find it absolutely hilarious that they just chuck his body into a giant industrial shredder at the end of it all. Like, this asshole has been plaguing Haddonfield for this long, and in the end he's treated like one of those visual ASMR videos. You know the ones. Alright, you know what time it is. It's time to discuss the aspects of this movie that I didn't enjoy, so strap yourself in, because there's going to be quite a few of them. I want to start off by saying that I've been considering 2 different perspectives when it comes to my review. One of them is looking at this as a standalone film, and the other is approaching it as the finale to a trilogy, and to be frank, I don't think it sticks either landing. By itself, I find Halloween Ends to be just kinda boring. I feel like this movie doesn't do a whole lot to stand out outside of it being the final Halloween film. It also doesn't help that the events and a lot of the characters from the first 2 movies are absent from this final installment, and it leaves it feeling so hollow. The inclusion of Corey feels so weird, considering it's the last hurrah and he's just kind of dumped in our laps. I'll admit that seeing his mental degradation over the runtime of the film is kinda cool to see, but it just can't possibly hit as hard as it would have if this character had been introduced from the beginning. I mean, if you were going to make him and Allison fall in love and have that be an integral part of the conflict, what was the point of her boyfriend Cameron? This relationship could have been built up over the course of these movies and actually make this heel turn feel genuine and earned. Speaking of Allison, she's just all over the damn place in this movie. No idea why she's written to just fall head over heels for this guy to the point where she's willing to leave her grandma behind. It feels even more forced when you remember that these characters barely fucking know one another, and she wants to skip town with this bozo after like a week of knowing him. He openly admits to killing someone, and she just doesn't even acknowledge it. What even is this character writing for Allison? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Although nothing feels more forced in this movie than Corey becoming Michael's weird slasher sidekick, it just really kinda comes out of left field and doesn't land for me at all. Upon an initial viewing, I had thought Michael had taken his page out of Chucky's book and split his conscience to take over Corey's body, but thankfully, that wasn't the case. I also really don't understand the lack of screen time for Michael. I get wanting to have another antagonistic force, it can make things very interesting if done right, but like I just mentioned, it's not built up properly and we're left to pay for it with a severe lack of our iconic slasher in his own movie. Another big issue I took was just how much time passed between this movie and the last. Kills taking place immediately after the previous film let the plot flow naturally and kept things cohesive, but this time around, 4 years have passed and it's not to its benefit. The events of the first two films are almost completely left to the wayside. It feels as if this movie somehow isn't even connected to them. All the important supporting characters that were murdered by Michael aren't ever really acknowledged again besides Laurie's deceased daughter Karen. To me, this made the deaths of characters like Tommy Doyle and Lonnie feel so inconsequential, and that really bummed me out. If you ask me, it's pretty insulting to bring these legacy characters back just to kill them off and barely make any mention of it in the finale. This was a hard review to write. I had a lot of expectations going into this movie, and to be fair to the filmmakers, there's no way that it could live up to everyone's impossible standards for the Halloween franchise and slashers in general. If this truly is the last Halloween film, then I do have to admit that I'm pretty disappointed. Like I said in my video about Netflix's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, maybe it's time to let this killer rest too. It's been over 40 years since the release of the original film, and even though Halloween is one of those franchises that is synonymous with the horror genre, sometimes it's best not to continue on longer than you need to, lest you run the risk of tarnishing the legacy of something you love. Obviously, nothing in this world can take away from the masterpiece that is Carpenter's classic, but if you're going to make continuations of one of the most important films in the genre, I think you should know your limitations as a screenwriter and know the limitations of the source material. My issue with these last two films have been that they got too big for their britches and let the hype of Halloween 2018 pave the way for two sequels that are mediocre for vastly different reasons. Those are my thoughts on Halloween Ends. I appreciate everyone who took the time to get this far in the video. You guys are absolutely amazing and I love you guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments about what you thought of this film. In the meantime, be on the lookout for the first big project for the channel. It's going to be a complete Bleach manga retrospective. I've been rereading the manga in its entirety in preparation for the new anime adaptation, and I cannot wait to get it out to you guys. Until next time everyone, I thank you all for taking the time to check out my latest video. You're all beautiful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!